All right, I think it's about time we can get started. Welcome to 3MT, 3-minute thesis competition. I'm just here to do the thank yous and introduce the MC and the judges and all that. But thank yous, we want to thank AV for handling all the technology today, facilities for all the rooms set up, getting all the chairs together, Molly Anderson in the library for her help, Northern Events for our snacks. And if you haven't had any, you should go ahead and make your way over. Loyalties in town for sponsoring our judges' gifts. Judge gifts? Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, our judges, which we're gonna introduce them separately in a moment. NMU faculty members who spent time mentoring a student, either here or whether they're presenting or not. Could you stand so we could recognize you? Thank you. Really, thank you, thank you. And Janelle Taylor, she has put this together from the beginning through all sorts of different modalities, online, not online, through snowstorms, not snowstorms. Yeah. A couple quick announcements. We're doing the trivia and People's Choice Awards using your phone. So you'll need your phone, but if you want to put it on silent, that'll be great. And I told you where the snacks are. I didn't tell you who I am. I'm Heather Pickett. I'm Director of Graduate Enrollment Management and Marketing at the Graduate Studies and Research Office. And I think our next, oh wait. All right, judges. We have, if you want to stand as I say your name, Marina Dupler from Barrel and Beam. Adam Call, Cal Morris Incorporated. Olivia Kingery, Pileated Farms, and Beth Miller from Beth Miller Jewelry. Thank you very much for your help. I think I switched over things. I'm very sorry, this should have started with this. Northern Michigan University is located on the ancestral homelands of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy, an honor alliance between the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. Before this land was called Marquette, it was called Gitche Nabebi Zebing. All right, and then we will move on to McNair.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Haukala. I'm the Assistant Director for the McNair Scholars Program. You may have noticed that we have a special category. That's in recognition of our students who have participated in summer research. They're doing such a high level work that we wanted to recognize them here, along with their colleagues in the Grad Studies Department. The McNair Scholars Program is a federally funded grant, one of 7 in Michigan now, with the newest being Michigan Tech. So now we have 2 in the UP. Very exciting. We offer, as I mentioned, faculty-led research for our undergraduate students, workshops, just different ways of professionalization to turn them into the best students possible. And the goal is to increase the attainment of PhDs by underrepresented groups in society. And it's just so exciting to see what they're doing. You will all agree that they are doing very high-level research for being baby little undergrads. So I'd like to thank them for just taking us on the journey with them. Then back to...
All right, so as it's been announced, I'm Janelle Taylor. I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Student Affairs in Graduate Studies and Research here at Northern. So a little bit of background about 3-minute thesis for those of you that haven't joined us before. So 3-minute thesis is a competition that was actually started by the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. So we picked it up about, this is our 6th one, so it's about 6 years ago. We decided to expand to have one on Northern's campus. So the idea is everybody does the same format, the judging is the same, the concepts are the same, and then students rise through and compete against each other until they have a couple like real huge final rounds. So like I said, on this slide, that's in over 900 universities in 80 countries worldwide. So part of what's really cool about 3MT is that we're part of a global scholarship community, which is awesome. That being said, they have specific rules. So this is just a little bit of, so you know what the presenters are trying to do, what parameters of input on them. So they're allowed to have one single static PowerPoint. There's no electronic media, no props, no dancing, no singing, that kind of thing. So that's why things are formatted in the way they are. Also, this is just informational. I'm not going to read it to you, but this is what our esteemed judges are looking at. They're looking through a list of how did this presentation work? Did it make sense to someone in the audience? Is it engaging? Did they communicate their concepts well? So since all of you are in fact tiny judges, you can keep those things in mind as well. So when we do the people's choice rounds, everyone in the audience does get to vote on those. So when we open those up, just be thinking a little bit critically about how the presenters were and who you want to vote for. So we do things as we have to with the licensed 3MT format. We also threw in a couple of fun things that we just like to do. So that means you also get to be crowd trivia members. So if you zoom in either on, if you have a program, it's on the back, all of these QR codes are on the back there. Or you can do it from the screen up here, or if you're online joining us, they'll be posting some links in case you're having any trouble getting the QR code to work. It's also out on our website. We have a lot of different ways to do it. You download the trivia app, and we're going to be releasing questions in between the speakers, because that's partly our judges need some time to actually fill out the judge form correctly and reflect back on it. So that gives them a little bit of time, and the audience gets to participate in trivia. Also, you get to win prizes. So once you load into there, you enter your name, it all kind of flows right through. We created it just for this event, so it should show up with a Northern 3MT. Note, people's choice is going to work roughly the same way. At the end of the McNair presenters, there will be another QR code on the screen. It's also on your program if you have one. That's where you will go in. It's just a form where you can vote for which person you want to vote as the McNair People's Choice. And we'll do the same thing for the graduate students. So we run parallel awards for each side of this because they're essentially just different categories. And at the end, there will be a Q&A for the presenters. So please, if you have any questions about someone's research, about what they're doing with it, hold that until the very end of the competition. And then please address which student you want to talk to, whether it's by the title of their work or their name, which would be preferable. But some way to say, this is the person I'm asking the question of, and then we'll let the presenters come up and do some short answers. So we're going to keep those fairly general if we can. Those of you that are in some of these fields, general questions that would be helpful to the whole group of us. So that's it. That's how the thing works. Also, we will ask our judges, just so you know, to submit all of your scores before we start Q&A, because we don't want that to affect your scoring in any way. So that will be aside. That being said, that means we're ready to start. So our first student is Abby Irish. She's a McNair student, and she studies here in the biology department. She is being advised by Dr. Cullen S. Venz and Dr. Rebecca A. Smith. And Abby's project is how to create a better biofuel sorghum.
Hello, my name is Abby Irish, and I had the opportunity this previous summer to do research at Wisconsin Energy Institute over at University of Wisconsin-Madison, doing a research experience for undergraduates experience. Throughout that time, I worked on a project on how to create a better biofuel sorghum. According to 2 Turkish scientists who published their research in 2018, we ultimately only have about 50 years left of petroleum oil to use. That causes a big issue and a crisis on how are we going to get transported from place to place? How are we going to heat up our homes? How are we going to cook our food? So that is a problem that we were trying to solve here. Not only to solve that problem, but also doing a renewable fossil fuel source. It can help make the world more sustainable and help preserve it so future generations can enjoy this earth that we are living on today. So how does biofuel work? Pretty much you take a plant, for example, sorghum, which is pictured over to the right of the slide here. We access the sugars within the plant, and those sugars are what's used for biofuel production. So how do we access these sugars? Is normally we go and break down the lignin backbone that's in the cell wall of the plant. Now, lignin is pretty much just in the cell wall of a plant. Its purpose is to help support the plant, keep it growing nice, tall, and strong. So there's two different enzymes that we were looking at, FMT and PMT. Pretty much FMT produces monolignyl ferrolates, that's within the backbone of the lignin, which is portrayed by the green dots on the screen. The gray dots are just representing that lignin backbone. So under easy pretreatments, which is also more sustainable, so under room temperatures and non-harsh chemicals, we can cleave at those and access those sugars within the plant. Now, PMT is just the competing enzyme that is being produced. So as you can see in the dark orange dots on the screen, they're not really helping our goal of accessing a lot of those sugars. So we created two different lines of sorghum, one that is high in the monolignyl ferrolate production, which is what the enzyme FMT produces. And we did that by having an overexpression promoter inserted into the plant. And then we also created a plant that's going to be low to no in the PMT production, which produces monolignyl p-coumarates, which is not exactly what we want. They're not very helpful. And we use that using CRISPR. How we analyzed this ultimately was through a Western blot analysis. So looking at the quantity of each enzyme that is being produced. Currently, my mentors actually have found a plant that's high producing in the FMT enzyme and one that's low in production of that PMT enzyme. So currently they are crossbreeding those together to ultimately have a goal of a plant, as shown on the bottom of the screen here, with a lot of cleavage access so we can gain the most sugar. So hopefully within the next couple of years, we will have this sorghum plant that can be used as great biofuel production to not only help our crisis of what are we going to do when our fossil fuel is depleted, and also help protect the earth for future generations to enjoy. Thank you.
So that means our judges will deliberate a little bit. You are good. And Tess is here to run trivia.
Hello, all. My name is Tess Sayan. I am also with the College of Grad Studies and Research in Research Development Sponsored Programs. Your question number one is, Marquette was one of USA Today's 10 best small towns for what? A, fun, B, pasties, or C, adventure? Go. All right, we've got 1 minute to answer. We're getting close there. Have we hit our time? Oh gosh, a minute is a long time when you're not saying or doing anything. Okay, let's not shout it out. Does anybody know the answer? Yes. Adventures, yes, good job. Okay, so not only are you presenting, but you're also on the ball to answer questions. Good job. The second question we're gonna have today is, which 1990s hit did neuroscientist and DJ Rebecca Polson play to baby zebrafish to monitor their brain activity? Can't touch this, Waterfalls, or Say My Name? Now, do you guys want me to sing those or?
And dance.
Oh, and dance. You can do the dance part. Does everybody recognize all these songs? Yeah. Okay, just in case. Can't touch this. Do, 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 do. Okay, don't go chasing waterfalls. Okay, we all know that. And Say my name, say my name. Okay, are we at time, please? We're on time, okay. Thank you. Okay, does anybody know the answer to that? Does anybody want to guess? Oh, good job. Nice. Okay, all right. Now let,
Big zebrafish music fan. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jess. All right. So Dominic, you are next up. So our next presenter is Dominic Dodson. Dominic is a McNair Scholar in the Chemistry, Medicinal Plant Chemistry Department. His advisor is Dr. Maris Sinelli, and Dominic will be talking about the effects of Datura metel on honeybees.
Hello, my name is Dominic, and my McNair research project consisted of testing the effects of Datura metel on honeybees and the honey that they produce. So honey can become contaminated by plant secondary metabolites, which are compounds that are produced naturally in the plant. And this plant in particular, Datura metel, produce a whole host, a wide array of plant secondary metabolites. And it is commonly used as an ornamental in gardens due to its unique appearance and its large flowering body. So two of these compounds in particular, as seen here, are used for medicinal purposes, but in high concentrations, they can be toxic. So with Datura being used as an ornamental and placed in gardens, we asked ourselves, if bees take this, if they take pollen and nectar produced by Datura and they incorporate it into their honey, what are they taking with them? For example, these two compounds here. And is it in high enough concentration to potentially harm or poison the consumer? I don't know if any of y'all out there have kept bees, but the last thing you want to hear is that you have 10 to 25 pounds of contaminated honey, because not only is that money out of your pocket, time that's wasted, the last thing you want to hear is someone mixed it into their morning tea and next thing you know, they wound up in the hospital. So in order to test it, we enclosed a beehive with a range of flowers, including the metel, commonly known as Jimson weed, if that's easier than the scientific name. And we allowed them to pollinate the Datura and a mix of flowers over the course of 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks was up, we harvested honey samples, and we're currently working on identifying and quantifying the amount of these compounds present in the honey samples.
All right, round two trivia. Everybody got their phones ready? Looks like, yeah. On 19 July 2022, parts of the UK reached record high temperatures. The Met Office recorded and verified the new record from Coningsby to Lincolnshire. How hot did it get? 40.3 Celsius, 45 Celsius, 35.6 Celsius. Was anyone in that area to know firsthand? No? Okay. Okay, we're almost there. I'm going to want to answer from that part of the room back there. Toss out a number, somebody. 45. 45 is not correct, but good guess. The correct answer is 40.3. Thanks for playing. Okay, the next question. The land upon which NMU is situated is the ancestral homeland of the Anishinaabe Three Fires Confederacy. What do the Three Fires refer to? The Ojibwa, Odawa, and Winnebago tribes, the Iroquois, Potawatomi, and Odawa tribes, the Ojibwa, Potawatomi, and Odawa tribes. Excuse me. B was Ottawa tribes. C is Odawa tribes. You kids can read that, right? Sorry, I really messed that one up. Okay, so this one was kind of a test if you're listening because Heather opened with our land acknowledgement. Are we there at it? Not quite, not quite. Okay. Okay. Who wants to toss out an answer? There we go. Good job. Okay.
Oh, yeah, backwards. Well, sorry about that. We have Aiden Mulvaney. And she is a McNair Scholar. She is talking about female identifying individuals in the Boy Scouts of America. Sorry, just like I don't know. It went away. So this is the real slide, but this is Aiden.
All right, hello, my name is Aiden. I'm a senior communications major and I am also an Eagle Scout. I spent 7 years in the scouting program and that actually inspired the need for this study because while I was in the program, I would be looking things up and I wouldn't be able to find anything on it. So I decided to do my own research on it. Basically, we interviewed 8 participants between the ages of 11 to 17, currently in the Scouts BSA program in the Boy Scouts of America. And we asked them questions related to identity, dignity, and gender. And what that means is dignity is how worthy you feel in the organization. It's how valued you feel within the organization. Identity is who am I within this organization in context to other people. So how are other people impacting your sense of self? And finally, we looked at how traditional gender roles were being performed within this particular organization. And we did a qualitative research study, meaning we analyzed each interview individually and we found common themes. So these themes that you're seeing up here are the 4 most common things that were found among my participants. The first theme was demographics is dignity, which is how many girls they saw in the program impacted how valued they felt. So if they were surrounded by large male troops, it impacted their confidence and ability to speak up in situations. So they found that in smaller contexts is when they actually felt the most empowered to talk to people because it's just easier to do it that way. The Girl Scout dropout, which is exactly what it says, 7 out of 8 of my participants actually dropped out of the Girl Scouts of America and are now currently in the Boy Scouts of America. And the final 2 identities that you're seeing up here is the guest identity and the pioneering identity. Both identities that are being performed are both others in the organization, meaning they are both visibly girls in a title whose in an organization whose title is literally Boy Scouts of America. So you're both othered in the organization, but this is how you deal with the feeling of being othered. So the guest means that people are saying like, oh, I'm so surprised you got this far in this amount of time. I'm so surprised that you're able to build a fire better than the boys and stuff like that. So that's how the guest identity is enacted. But the pioneering identity is how it's translated into a positive lens. So it says, yes, I understand that I am an other in this organization, but the pioneer identity says I am a girl on my own terms. And even though we're kind of standing out, we're just gonna make the best of it and try and be empowered in my own way. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, here we go, y'all. This NMU professor was once part of the opening act for the band Led Zeppelin. These are all biology. Dr. Jill Leonard, Dr. Neil Cumberledge, or Dr. John Brudgink. I think any of them would be very interesting to see. If anybody has footage, please share. Oh. So before we go to an answer for this question, was anyone there? Whoever's here, were any of you guys there? No? Okay, who knows the answer? No, that's a little, okay, all right. All right, let's hear, who is it? Yeah, you guys did not, all 4 of you guys did know the answer. Okay, here we go. Our next one. In what place did Marquette rank as one of the world's best small cities for biking in the 4th annual rating by People for Bikes? Was it 1st, 5th, or 9th? So how many people here are bikers? We got, okay, interesting. Not quite as many as I would have thought. Have we made it to a minute yet? Okay, so does anybody know the answer to this? Marquette came in 9th.
We should have just given ourselves first. No one would know the difference. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Brings us to our last McNair Scholar. Colton Geschwantner is a student in chemistry, medicinal plant chemistry. He is advised by Dr. Evan Pratt, and he'll be presenting, thanks. He'll be presenting interrogation of CB1 and CB2 receptors signaling in living mammalian cells.
Hello, my name is Colton Geschwander, and I'll be presenting the cannabinoid-mediated cyclic AMP signaling and ERK phosphorylation in 6 cells. So basically, this presentation, we looked at 2 different signaling molecules that do with autophagy, which is it's a process where cells recycle themselves and replace themselves to replenish themselves. And this is important because cancer is on the rise, and cannabinoids can be used to help with cancer research. So basically we used the synthetic cannabinoid WIN 55212, and we activated these cells. And basically these cells are activated, and we looked at 2 different signaling pathways. One's called TERK and one's called cyclic AMP. And when we activated these with cannabinoids, we saw a response, as you can see in this graph right here. And when we added the cannabinoid to the cells, we saw that ERK was phosphorylated, and you can see this based on the control. And we looked at these 2 different receptors, and we saw that when we blocked them, we had a stronger response when we added the cannabinoid receptors to the CB2 cells. And when we looked at the other signaling pathway called cyclic AMP, we use what's called a FRET-based sensor. And a FRET sensor, when cyclic AMP binds, the molecules separate from each other, and it causes a response, as you can see in this graph over here. And we added one of the molecule called forskolin, which increased cyclic AMP pretty drastically. And then we added the cannabinoid WIN, which showed a dampener response, which means that cyclic AMP decreased. And when we inhibited the 2 different receptors, it showed it dampened the effects of that, where there was really no response. And it basically tied these both together. When we looked at these 2 different receptors, or these 2 different signaling molecules together, it showed that it showed a response that leads to autophagy. And we're now trying to tie these 2 together, and we're hoping that we can figure out how much autophagy is within the cells. And autophagy is important because if we're trying to kill cancer cells, and we can get it to go through a process like autophagy, it will selectively kill those cells, and it won't mess with the other good living cells in the system. And it will help eradicate cancer. Thank you.
Good job. Good job. Right, so that's the end of the McNair Scholars presentations today. So that means we're moving into the graduate side. So that's where you all get to be a part of the judging panel. So please use this QR code or use the code on the back of your program. It will bring you to a form and it will just list the students who just presented. You can choose one student, submit, and then we'll tally that and let you know who won at the end. We're gonna do one more minute, make your selections, finish your input. I know our judges have a little more work to do, so they're trying. All right, so we're gonna move into our graduate section. So our next speaker is Christian Choate. She's a graduate student in the biology department. Christian is advised by Doctors Robert Belton, Paul Mann, and Matthew Jennings. And she'll be talking about lighting the way to a longer life for brain cancer patients with LAMP.
Cancer is a global problem. Every year, millions of people suffer from it, and cancers of the brain are particularly complicated because the tissue that surrounds the tumor makes up a person's day-to-day life and exactly who they are. And so one of the ways that we deal with this is that when we surgically remove a tumor from the brain, we try to avoid as much tissue that surrounds the tumor as possible. And normally this is the correct choice because people need to keep that healthy tissue so that they do not experience cognitive impairments after the fact. However, a beneficial subtype exists of cancer, which has the potential to provide patients with an extra 3 to 4 years of life, but only when excess tissue is removed from around the tumor. To put into perspective how significant this actually is, normally cancer patients are given a time frame that's measured in months as opposed to years for their survival. And 30% of glioma patients have this beneficial subtype. Despite this, no techniques are currently used that can identify this subtype during the time of surgery. We're trying to change that with a diagnostic technique called LAMP. And the way that LAMP works is that you can add a small volume of the tumor to our LAMP reaction, which will change yellow if the subtype is present, and it will remain pink if the subtype is absent. We have tested this on 20 tumor samples that were donated to us from Aurora Research Institute in Milwaukee and had a 100% accuracy rate. Our reaction is also able to provide visually interpretable results in about 35 minutes, which is more than enough time to provide surgeons with the ability to alter their surgical approach, since brain tumors surgeries can often take between 2 and 7 hours to complete. This is also so simple that high school students can do it. We used a Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation grant recently and brought this experiment to local high schools for students with no technical training to try out, and they were able to identify the subtype using LAMP. So we have a test that is both accurate, fast, and it is reliable. And we have actually just sent the results of this out for publication. So we are hoping to get this out to the medical community so that we can help get patients years of their lives back. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. So the 1938 fire that demolished much of downtown Marquette is believed to have begun because A, an unattended ashtray at Peter White Public Library, B, an employee was trying to burn records for St. Paul Episcopal Church, or C, a horse kicked over a gas lamp in a barn on 4th Street. I gotta say, Peter White and the Episcopal Church are a little bit away from 4th Street, so that's interesting. Do we have any historians in the house? No, okay. All right, does anybody have any idea what the answer is? No, okay, the answer is an employee was trying to burn records for St. Paul Episcopal Church. Okay. Here goes. Russian scientists etched a mini replica of which beloved painting using a laser paintbrush? A, Girl with the Pearl Earring, B, The Starry Night, or C, The Birth of Venus? I think any of these would have been pretty cool to do. Oh yeah, you do get more points for answering fast, so. So maybe that's why I feel like there's so much time here in this minute to answer. Okay. Who wants to guess? Okay, it's a starry night, or The Starry Night.
All right. So our next presenter is Kenzie Grover. Kenzie is a graduate student in the biology department. She's advised by Dr. Kurt Galbraith, and she'll be talking about the Mongolian remodeling and the structure of host parasite diversity across Central Asia.
Ecological disruption plays an important role in structuring animal communities. Take, for example, Central Asia about 33 million years ago. A drastic climatic cooling and drying event occurred, which led to a change in the landscape as dense forests gave way to open grasslands. This led to a change in animal communities as large-bodied mammals declined and smaller rodents diversified, an event known as the Mongolian remodeling. For the next 15 million years or so, the climate continued to fluctuate. Periods of cooling led to expansion of glaciers, which restricted animal ranges and isolated populations, while periods of warming led to an expansion of geographic ranges and creating new interactions for species to interact. Ecological disruption also plays an important role in structuring the diversity of parasites that inhabit other animals. During periods of ecological stasis, parasites can co-evolve with their hosts, and during periods of ecological disruption, they have an opportunity to encounter and colonize new hosts, with which they are then isolated during the next glacial cycle. Rodents in Central Asia are host to an array of different parasite species, which provides an ideal opportunity to investigate the consequences of the Mongolian remodeling on structuring parasite communities. My research is looking at a hyperdiverse group of tapeworms called the Paranopolis species complex, and is testing the hypothesis that this group originated in Central Asia during the Mongolian remodeling and then experienced a period of rapid species diversification during the episodes of repeating ecological disruption. I sequenced the gene from the mitochondria of tapeworms collected in Mongolia, and with that was able to identify samples to species and then to identify lineages representing species new to science. I evaluated the evolutionary relationships between species in this complex and reconstructed the geographic origin of this group. So far, I've discovered 11 lineages representing species that are previously undescribed, and evidence is suggesting that this group originated in Central Asia about 30 million years ago, or just after the Mongolian remodeling. And while these results are interesting, why should anyone care about tapeworms? Well, first of all, there's estimated to be about 20,000 different species of tapeworms on Earth, but currently only 4,000 species are described, leaving a vast gap in our knowledge of parasite diversity. Understanding and documenting diversity of organisms on Earth is critical for understanding how we humans impact the Earth around us. As species diversities and distributions change due to anthropogenic climate change, invasive species, and pollution. And understanding the biosphere around us is critical for preserving science, conservation efforts, and maintaining a healthier environment for tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, so our next trivia question. What did Kenyan conservationists build to rescue 8 endangered Rothschild giraffes from an island? Did they use raft? Did they use a bridge? Or did they use hang glider? Perfect. They can do it. Goodness gracious. Oh, that's perfect. I love it. Just the response we were hoping for. Are we good? Okay, so can we all guess which one is not the answer? The hang glider, yes. The bridge, okay. It was the raft. All right, so scientists at MIT have developed a new cooling material that could keep things cold without a power supply. What inspired the material? Was it camel fur, penguin feathers, or beaver fur? Oh, yeah, that should be a U. Pardon that typo, please. Oh. All righty. Do we have anybody that is aware of this answer? No. What was that? Cat, you got it. You got it. Thank you. That was camel fur.
Yeah. It's yeah. Testing your abilities here too. All right, so our next student is Megan Wells. Megan is a graduate student in the Psychological Sciences Department. She's advised by Dr. Amber Lacrosse, and she'll be talking about the efficiency of ketamine in treating post-traumatic stress disorder.
2020, over 13 million Americans were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. If I were to ask all of you here today, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear PTSD? It would be safe to assume a majority of people would think of words associated with war, soldiers, veterans, and so on. In reality, PTSD is caused by an exposure to any type of traumatic event. An unfortunate truth is that any of us is at risk for developing this disorder at some point in our lives. Our friends, our families, ourselves. And while factors such as environment and genetics may increase the chances, we are all only one experience away from being affected by PTSD. Current pharmacological treatments for this disorder do exist, but they come with issues in effectiveness and risk of adverse reactions. Our current first-line medication treatment for PTSD involves two medication types, SSRIs and SNRIs. Both of these were found to have a remission rate of not even 50% for those with PTSD. Symptoms of this disorder are severe, and they affect someone in every aspect of life. These facts emphasize our need for new treatment options. My thesis project will look at the effects 3 different isomers of ketamine, R-ketamine, S-ketamine, and R-S-ketamine have on PTSD. We predict that each isomer will offer different therapeutic benefits. Supported by research showing the success of ketamine in treating various psychiatric disorders, we believe that ketamine will be able to prevent or reduce the onset of symptoms associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. Ketamine has been found to be safe and shows significant effect in reducing symptoms of major depressive disorder as well as bipolar disorder. Certain properties of ketamine, specifically related to NMDA receptors, show promise in being able to prevent the formation of intrusive thoughts, nightmares, and flashbacks, all of which are core features of PTSD. My study will use established fear conditioning models in order to induce a traumatic experience using mice. We will then look for and assess behaviors that are indicative of PTSD with the expectation that mice receiving the ketamine treatment will behave similarly to mice in our control group, who will not undergo any fear conditioning and will not receive any form of treatment. 2 weeks later, we will look for the onset of generalized anxiety disorder using an open field test. We predict that mice in the ketamine group will show fewer symptoms of anxiety than mice in our controlled treated group. People with PTSD deserve a safe, effective, and well-researched treatment. We predict that ketamine will become a novel treatment option with higher efficacy for those with PTSD. Thank you.
Okay, I'm seeing phones ready. Here we go. Which year is Halley's Comet due to return to our skies? 2062, 2061, or 2024? I'm thinking this one's a little bit easier for us, at least I had it in my mind. Do we have any astronomers here that have the answer? Okay, the year is 2061. If you're trapped under rubble, which animal might come to your rescue? A cat, or excuse me, cats, mice, or rats? Who come to your rescue might not necessarily be who you want there. I mean, we all have our, our friendlies. Yes, absolutely. Disney movie, yes. What do we think is a collective? Rats. And rats would be the right answer.
I feel like cats would just come and sit on the rubble on you. Like, we're here. All right, so our next presenter is Nathan Joyle. Nathan is a graduate student in integrated bioscience. His advisor is Dr. Leslie Putman, and he'll be presenting a study of the relative commercial viability of cannabis indica in an organic super soil mycorrhizal ecosystem. Practice.
Howdy. So whether we're talking about cannabis or any of our more traditional cash or food crops, the main way that we grow them today is to throw the seeds or the cuttings in the ground wherever we happen to own land, and then dump just a ton of salt-based fertilizers on them to get them to grow nice and big and large. And the problem with that is that in the long run, that causes just a ton of issues for the ecosystem. We have algae blooms in our lakes and rivers choking out the natural wildlife there. We have salt buildup in our fields that ultimately makes them less arable over time. And chemicals can leach their way into our groundwater and into our municipal drinking systems. And if we're not talking about outdoor farming, then we're talking about indoor farming. And for cannabis, that's maybe a little bit more well-known or larger, but there's lots of indoor farming operations for lettuce, tomatoes, kale, chard, things like that. And they're all done hydroponically. And hydroponic farming, very similar to fertilizer-based soil farming, involves using a lot of salt-based fertilizers in this liquid solution that ultimately gets dumped into the ground or down municipal water drains somewhere. So what I'm looking at is using cannabis as a research subject due to the size of the industry and the amount of money in the industry. There's lots of large corporate players that are flush with money right now looking for an edge over their competition. So it is a timely research subject for agronomy research in general. So my goal is to study what in the cannabis industry is known as an organic super soil, which is a soil that is fertilized only with elements found in nature and then fed only water over the course of the plant's life cycle. And my goal is to show that while there may be a higher upfront cost in terms of yield per dollar spent, corporations are actually better off financially using an organic and sustainable method of farming versus the salt-based fertilizers we use today. Obviously, the goals for this would be to demonstrate a wider property that would apply outside of the cannabis industry and hopefully would help farming in general be more sustainable on our planet. Thank you.
All righty. I like these little eyes there. That was fun. Okay, first question. Which animals are currently favored to become the first interstellar space travelers? Is it cockroaches? Is it tardigrades? Or tardigrades, yes, or centipedes? All very interesting looking creatures. Yes. We're just talking about, we have mice and rats and cats saving people, and we've got roaches and tardigrades and centipedes traveling into space. We've got some kids' books here. Okay, do we have anybody with an answer? Do we know? What do we think? You got it. B. We should show you a picture of what those. Okay, what was the original name of NMU? Northern Technological College? Excuse me, Northern Technical College. It has never changed its name, or Northern Normal School. I'm sure we've got a couple people in here that know this answer. And when you went to NMU back in the day, what was it called? There we go. You got it.
Just if it helps, that's what they called teacher schools. It wasn't that there was like an abnormal school somewhere else, just so you know. All right, so our next presenter is Colin Smith. Colin is a graduate student in the biology department. He is advised by Dr. Robert Wynn, and he'll be talking about characterizing cancer, how we ID IDH1. Really? You had to do that to me. Yeah. How we ID IDH1. There we go.
We all know someone who has battled cancer. If you or a loved one was diagnosed with glioblastoma, this is what you'd see from a quick Google search. Glioblastoma is the most common form of brain cancer. If you continued to investigate, you'd learn that the average survival rate for those diagnosed with glioblastoma is about 1 year. We've made great strides in cancer treatments. But over the last 3 decades, we have not been able to improve the survival rate of those diagnosed with glioblastoma. The future of cancer treatment is personalized diagnostics. Cancers vary so much from each other that it becomes very difficult to treat. So if we're better able to characterize the cancer and detect it early, we have a much better chance of improving survival and increasing quality of life. Here at Northern Michigan University, we have looked specifically into a point mutation, a single point mutation in the 3.2 billion base pair genome, known as IDH1 mutation. With that mutation, studies have shown that cancers that have this mutation grow slower. So what does that mean for the patient? Patients who have the IDH1 mutation greatly benefit from maximal resection of tumor tissue. So our goal is to develop a test. Currently, labs that test for this mutational status take about 2 weeks for the results to be able to come in. We would like to develop a test that can help guide the surgeon while surgery is still in operation, to help guide the resection. Because studies have shown that there's no benefit for larger resections for normal tumors, but there's a great advantage with a median survival of about 10 years for proper treatment if they have this mutation. And we have currently developed a technique that can detect this mutation status in about 10 minutes. And we are working to get it applicable to hospital laboratories. Thank you very much.
Okay, so a couple of my favorite questions here. In what year did NMU open? So it wasn't 1889. And it wasn't 1920. So it was 1899. All righty. So what is the unofficial mascot of the NMU College of Grad Studies and Research, also known as the unicorn of the sea? Spider crab, narwhal, or goblin shark? You got it. You got it. All right, I think we're at our last presenter.
All right. So our last presenter today is Caitlin DeWitt. Caitlin is a graduate student in the biology department. Her faculty advisor is Dr. Alan Robertus. And today Caitlin's going to talk about pollination dispersal patterns and population trends of Ram's Head lady slipper in the Grand Sable Dunes.
So the wildflower Ram's Head lady slipper is a member of the orchid species or the orchid family, and it is native to the Great Lakes states. A lot of Michigan native orchids are kind of on the decline, and this is mostly due to habitat change. And my research focuses on Ram's Head lady slipper, which is located in Grand Sable Dunes. Most populations of this orchid are found in numbers of tens or 100s, but the population in this location is estimated to be above 3 million individuals, which is obviously quite different than a lot of the other smaller populations. And so this here is Grand Sable Dunes. This is my study area. And Ram's Head lady slipper resides on these forested islands indicated in white. Most current research on orchids kind of focuses on like a lot of research is done on populations that aren't very stable. They're really struggling. And the reason why is because people really want to know about these populations that need like conservation efforts and a lot of help. But in order to really work on conserving these populations, we really need to understand what a stable population looks like. And that is where my research comes in. So like I said, the population here is really large. But the most recent estimate was done in 2009. So I will return to this site and kind of update that number and see if the population has increased in numbers or decreased. And then the second part of my research will focus on pollination dispersal methods. So Ram's Head and other members of the lady slipper family are, they either reproduce asexually or sexually. Asexual reproduction, they form like little clumps of clones. And this does affect pollination. So like if a pollinator was to go from a clone to another clone, no gene flow would happen and diversity would not be promoted. But if a pollinator was to visit one flower in one island and pollinate in another island, there would be a lot more gene flow going on. So to do this, I mark the pollen of one flower with a fluorescent dye, and then I can go and visit the site a couple days later and see if the pollination has been transferred. And this is just really important in understanding gene flow in this species. Thank you.
Okay. That means we are done. The next step is for those of you in the audience to do your People's Choice vote for the graduate winner. So you'll put this in, there'll be a list of the students who just presented. Pick one of those students. And we'll give everybody a minute to make their decisions, enter in their info.
Okay, we're gonna fill a little more space with a couple more questions. Okay, I didn't think so. So they're not on the slideshow, but if you have your phone up, the questions will show there. So I'll start with the next one. Money Magazine featured Marquette as a top city to visit during which month? October, September, or February? So this month? We got lots of fun stuff going on this month. Looks like the winter is the month that I always tell people to visit. What do you guys say? October, yes, October. October is what Money Magazine said. Okay, so our last question is, which number does Major League Baseball, excuse me, which number do Major League Baseball players wear on April 15th? Is it number 24, 3, or 42? Got lots of confused faces. I don't know if anybody has got this one. Yeah, that's good. Yes, a sports question tossed in with all the science stuff. Ooh, I think we do have somebody that knows. I think it looks like there's somebody that knows the answer about over in this area. What's that number? Number 42. You were right. Do we know why? Does anyone know why? All righty. Thank you very much. That is all the questions for now. Thank you very much.
Okay. So has everyone voted for people's choice? Are you all good on that end? Okay, so we'll put that down. So now we have the trivia winners. All of you people. We have 3 prizes. It's first, second, and third places. So our third place trivia winner is Laura W. Is, hey, yay! Our second place winner is Stephanie. Where'd you go? Oh, you stood up. You finally get swag from a different office instead of giving it out for once. Yeah. And our top winner is Ross. I like how you all put first names, just assuming you'd be the only one of these. I would really enjoy there to have been multiple and have you like battle it out. So we're gonna open up to a little bit of Q&A. The judge things are in, they're tallying to finish out exactly who's in what place. But this is the time to ask any questions. If you watched any of that and want to know more about something, have a follow-up question for any of the presenters. If you're in the room here, you can raise your hand and ask it. I'll kind of repeat it through here. If you're on Zoom, you can put it in the chat and we'll just relay it back. Yeah. Sure.
When we were learning them during the studies of the whole 3 weeks, we would go out there and we would assess them for any signs of disorientation, drowsiness, drunkenness, them being thrown out of the hive, or out of the dump for a dead meat. But didn't really notice anything great compared to all the deeper consistent. We're currently working on an extraction method for LC to identify ankle.
Thanks. You had more? Oh. Yeah. We have another question.
I also have a question about the traumatized mice. Which is, are you studying this on PTSD from one traumatic event, or will you or have you expanded it to compounding trauma, so a multitude of traumatic events over the mouse's lifetime?
So right now we're just doing.
Oh, yes.
We're just doing the one traumatic event and then we're testing its behaviors a few times after that, but we're only doing one event. I mean, in the future, we might do like continuous events to see like how long-term trauma affects a mouse, but right now it's just that one.
Yes. Okay, so the question was if there were other alternative biofuel plants that are currently doing research on, and there are. Sorghum, switchgrass is another very popular one. A lot of people, when they hear the word biofuel, they think of corn. A lot of research is straying away from doing corn ethanol, and just because it's more sustainable than fossil fuel, but it's less sustainable to grow because there's a food versus biofuel crop crisis that can go on with it. And also corn is known to take a lot of nitrogen away from the soil, meaning you have a bunch of crop rotation going on as well. But the two that I can come up with the top of my head are sorghum and switchgrass.
We have a judge question.
I have another question about the ketamine test. Is ketamine like a drug that's already used in treatments, or is it not something that's being used in the medical field?
So typically it's a anesthetic. But they've been doing tests on various psychiatric diseases or disorders, so like major depressive disorder and bipolar disorder, and they found success with that. But the one isomer of ketamine that they've been using currently for PTSD is the S-ketamine isomer. So we're just kind of seeing how the other two might compare to that.
Yeah.
So we use an aversive shock stimulus that is they're exposed to through a grid flooring system in an operant chamber. So they receive a few shocks. But there is previous research on fear conditioning, and we follow those methods. And those methods are known to not cause harm to the mice, like they aren't physically injured. We're just looking for the mental effects that causes.
My question is for Ian and the girls and Boy Scouts. How far did you have to search to find 8 respondents to the survey? Was it a local survey? Was it much wider? I was kind of curious the scope.
So we had participants on the East Coast, people in the Midwest. I posted the call for participants in Facebook groups, like Girls and the Boy Scouts of America, female troop leaders, stuff like that. And they reached out to me, and that's how I got my participants. But yeah, it was very difficult to find 8 of them.
Nathan.
Sure, totally. Yeah, it uses a base potting mix, and then the numerous organic compounds are added to it, and including a mycorrhizal amendment. And then that's given 90 days to cook and ferment, and then the plants are potted in that at that point. I don't off the top of my head. I'd have to check my notes at home. Yeah. Yeah, and I've experimented with a number of different commercial products that contain various species of mycorrhizae. So yeah, I'd have to check around that right now. Sorry. I don't have a lot of data. I would have to say that the results of the organic super soil are very promising so far. Yeah, I'm sort of at the beginning of this journey, but yeah, I have high hopes for what we're going to show.
Right, we're gonna do one last question if there's one around, and then we can let you know who won things.
I have a question for Colton. Cannabinoids that you are testing, how are you defining this?
So we use a cannabinoid called WIN 55212-2. It's a synthetic cannabinoid, so it's like completely made in a lab, and it actually looks like very different from like THC and the other ones. And we just chose that because it had a high binding affinity for both the CB1 and CB2 receptor. So it just activates it stronger than like THC or CBD would.
All right, who wants to know who won? Good, yeah. All right. We're all queued up, they're in there, okay. It's like jumping in, and you're like, the name should be here. So you have the McNair students first. So we'll let you know. Oh, that's what I was supposed to have up that whole time. Never mind, there we go. Oh, I don't know.
You have to restart the presentation.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. Just re-slideshow? Oh, and that already has a redone it? Hey, look at that. You want to stand up? Aiden and Abby, if you guys want to stand, we can do a real wave. Hi. Yeah, there you go. And that brings us over to our graduate winners. Nathan Joyle, Kristen Choate, and Megan Wells. Stand up here, come on. Everybody wants to be happy for you. All right, congratulations. So this is the part where everybody gets to mingle around and eat the food. And we're gonna have actually all our participants and also our winners stay here. We're gonna have some pictures. And everybody else mingle and talk and congratulate people. Thank you all for coming so much.